At the peak of cinema's transition to digital, for a moment, it looked like film might disappear completely. But at the 2026 Academy Awards, 3 out of 5 nominations for Best Cinematography and 5 out of 10 nominations for Best Picture were shot on film, or more specifically, shot on Kodak, because they are the only remaining large-scale manufacturer of color motion picture film. We want to know what the future of film looks like. Is it an endangered species, or is it thriving? To find out, we're going to see how film is made and speak to Kodak themselves. We are in upstate New York and are battling through the snow to get to the city of Rochester. First, a quick history lesson. In 1889, Kodak commercialized the production of transparent roll film, producing it in a 4-story building at 343 State Street in Rochester, New York. That building disappeared a long time ago. Now in its place stands Kodak Tower. Motion picture imaging was a collaboration between Thomas Edison, William Dixon, and George Eastman. Edison's money and direction, William Dixon's engineering, and George Eastman's transparent roll film, which was made in Rochester. So this city had a fundamental role in the invention of the moving image. Kodak's Rochester operations grew into a large campus, which is now called the Eastman Business Park. For over 130 years, Kodak have made film, and they still are. They've kindly allowed us inside the factory, and it seems only right for us to film on film. We had access to every part of the production process. We went in clean rooms and dark rooms, big rooms and small rooms. We got to speak to employees in New York and in LA. While we couldn't have made this without Kodak's help, what you are about to see is our story and our thoughts.
Before we go any further, this isn't about whether or not film is better than digital. Incredible images can be made with both. Both mediums have their strengths. For example, it's reasonable to say that digital is the gold standard for fidelity. But it's also reasonable, on the other hand, to say that film is the gold standard for beauty. We're glad that both options exist for filmmakers to choose from. In fact, choice is fantastic. Imagine if there was only one camera manufacturer that made digital cameras, perhaps Sony or Arri. That lack of diversity would not be good. It's healthy for there to be an alternative to shooting images digitally. It's good for the industry and it's good for creativity. Film offers a way for you to allow the technical process to influence your creativity. And even if you never touch film, film still influences the way that a lot of digital images are captured and color graded. In short, whether you shoot on film or digital, film has a massive impact on the images that we create. Film is important. We hope that everyone can enjoy this story.
Let's begin. There are 4 primary steps in the manufacture of film. Make the base, that clear plastic-like material. Prepare the coating, the light-sensitive chemicals that allow you to record images. Apply the coating to the base, then trim and package the final product. Each step happens in a different building. The business park is huge. These buildings aren't right next to each other, so take this lovingly crafted animation with a pinch of salt. Building 317 is where the film base is manufactured. In Building 30 and 38, the light-sensitive coatings for the film are manufactured and then applied to the base. These buildings are linked by a bridge. Film is made in super wide rolls that get taken to Building 326, where they are cut to size, perforated, packaged, and distributed, ready for you. That's the overview. We're gonna start at the beginning. Imagine trying to make a sandwich without bread or a painting without a canvas. The coating on the film, the bit that the image is recorded on, just wouldn't work without something to apply it to. Say hello to Adam. He's gonna show us around.
So we're here in Building 317, where the polyester film base is made. All the way on the other end of the machine as a plastic powder that gets ground up here on site, and then we send it through a couple of extrusion screws as it gets melted. It gets stretched in a couple of directions and then ends up over here.
There's some cool stuff to unpack there. Adam mentioned that the polyester gets stretched as it goes down the line. You can see here, near the beginning of the line, the polyester is as thick as a book, but by the end, it's as thin as a piece of paper. That stretching happens gradually and with carefully controlled temperatures. It helps to align the polymers, which gives the film base its strength. As you head down the line, there's instrumentation everywhere. These dials show the increasing width of the roll and allow operators to fine-tune the process. The film is made from these plastic pellets. Fun fact, they arrive at the plant by train. Did you notice that Adam said polyester? Film can also be made from a different material called acetate. What's the difference? Polyester is stronger and tends to be used for exhibition. When film is run through a projector multiple times a day, you want it to be robust. Acetate tends to get used in cameras because if the camera jams, you want the film to break rather than the film breaking the camera. To demonstrate the difference, we're going to do a little test. This is polyester print release. It's a commercial for a drink. Don't worry, nothing precious. This is acetate camera neg. It's not been processed, but that doesn't affect its strength. We will test the polyester first. I'm attaching it carefully to this 10 kilogram weight with tape so that I don't create any stress points by bending the film. I can swing it back and forth and it does not break. It really is impressive how strong it is. Next, we'll test the acetate. I'll attach it to the weight the exact same way. If I lift this slowly, it will hold, but as soon as I start to swing it, it breaks. The acetate is clearly not as strong as the polyester, but that's a design choice to protect the camera.
Whether you shoot on film or digital, storage is a critical part of any workflow. This video has kindly been sponsored by Iodine. Please allow us a moment to tell you about this insanely fast SSD. The Pro Data comes in capacities from 12 terabytes to 192 terabytes. Unlike a normal SSD, multiple computers can be connected simultaneously, or by connecting two Thunderbolt cables to the same computer, multipathing can be used to increase speed. There's often a disconnect between a drive's claimed speed and sustained speed. Have you ever started a transfer only to see the copy time increase over time rather than go down? Iodine's throughput figures represent the drive's real-life sustained read and write speeds. And don't forget it's doing all of that while keeping your data encrypted and RAID protected. Why is speed so critical for large productions? If data is not secured by the end of the day, you'll have to pay your DIT overtime, lose valuable production time, or add rental costs for your camera media. The Pro Data is a workhorse that you will want to reuse on every project.
This is the end of our film machines process where the film is wound onto our cores here. Our operators here will cut rolls about every 30 minutes and they'll get moved out here where they'll get packaged in caskets and sent off to our other buildings to get additional coatings added to them.
There's hundreds of these wooden caskets constantly in circulation. Here's an interesting fact. The wood is carefully sourced because in certain parts of the world, there are irradiated forests. If that wood was used, it could cause damage to the sensitized film stored within.
I started about 2 years ago, so there's a lot to learn here and it's gonna take a lot longer to get up to speed on everything. It can be high pressure, but rewarding. All the different functions, our maintenance group has a lot of experts on equipment issues. Our operators know the general process really well, and our quality team are experts in identifying defects on the machine. So it really takes the whole team to make a good product.
Adam was our first encounter with Kodak's succession strategy. That's the process by which a company transfers leadership to the next generation of employees. So once all the current experts retire, the company can continue to thrive. Adam is young and new, but already has a fair amount of responsibility. We'll talk more about this later. S-Star is Kodak's brand name for its polyester film base. It's used for making products other than photographic film. But if it is destined for film, it gets transported to the next building in the process. The next step is to manufacture the coatings that make film sensitive to light. Buildings 30 and 38 are linked by a bridge. It's hard to overemphasize their importance. They are the heart and soul of motion picture film production.
My name's Jeff Hansen. I'm the technical manager in Rochester Film Sensitizing, and I lead a team of about 30 people who deal with the components of film, the source of supply of chemicals, the film formulation, the recipes of about 90 different films. Our team is the product quality and as commercialization of new films.
A typical color film has many different layers. Each layer contains many ingredients. So to make those 90 different types of film, there's hundreds of recipes and ingredients. Film is made in batches. Today, they might be making 500T. Tomorrow, they might be making Tri-X. Before a batch can be made, the ingredients need to be prepared. So on a daily basis, the operators in this room are making different recipes.
So if we were making a cake, these are all the little ingredients that we'd have out on our counter. And then you're going to put different ingredients together to make a different ocean of
Everything
chemicals.
is recipe driven. Paperwork comes out. It tells us somebody else what they're going to put in to make it. It's a high volume dispense area. Everything's made on demand. You're signaled how to make or what to make, depending on what the operators are filling. And the system won't let you do it without, you can't just make something and pump it up. Everything is tied electronically, scanned in, so you can't pump the wrong item to the wrong position. Everything is, and I'll show you that right here.
This is a great point to say we were privileged to get to tour Kodak, but production can't stop for us. It's a working factory, and a great deal of the processes that happen in it are delicate and don't mix well with a film crew. We get to be in this room right now because it's between shifts. That's why it's quiet.
That's a make vessel. They're all different ones depending on what you're making. Certain things you can't make something different. The acids and precious metals are made in the plastic. Your just water-based solutions and some of your other things are made in the steel.
Because it would be corrosive in here.
And reactive, yeah, correct.
The ingredients used to make photographic coatings needs to be in a liquid form, and they also need to have a consistent concentration. That's accomplished by creating solutions, dispersions, emulsions, and suspensions. I'm going to illustrate the differences by making a deconstructed cup of tea. But remember, the actual chemistry is far more complex. If I add loose tea to the first mug, it's going to release compounds into the water that give it flavor and color. Ignore that for one moment and just concentrate on the leaves themselves. They are suspended in the water. They will never dissolve. If I keep on stirring, they are still well mixed. But if I leave them, they will settle to the bottom. Look how the leaves are still solid. This is a suspension. Sugar is a solid. If I add it to the next cup of hot water and keep stirring, it dissolves completely. The sugar is no longer a solid, it's in solution. Milk is mostly water and fat. Usually, water doesn't mix well with oily substances. Milk also contains proteins, which acts as an emulsifier and helps the fat and the water to mix. Milk is an oil and water emulsion. Finally, if I add the milk to the tea, the milk disperses evenly throughout the tea. It doesn't dissolve, but does remain evenly spread out. Adding milk to tea forms a colloidal dispersion. Now, film isn't made from tea and milk, but hopefully this helps you to understand different types of mixtures that are produced for film.
I saw this area built from the beginning when there was nothing here, so I know the guys that were actually did the work, did the programming, did the debugging, and ran the system, and I actually helped. So I saw that, all the test batches, all this stuff, and it's like 99.99 to 100 point whatever accuracy. It's like good. It's right there. It put in to less than 30 grams of water out of 30 kilos. It's within spec.
We're in building 30 right now. The rest of the process happens in building 38. To get there, the ingredients are taken to the bridge. Make it so, number one.
This specific job is called a bridge operator. So we send the material that gets made from building 30 down the conveyor belt, and then we send it down the line, and then it's all automated from there.
We're about to go into a part of the building that is normally operated in complete pitch black darkness. We get to enter because we're between shifts and the lights are on. Can we just take a moment to marvel at how clean everything is? That's critical for producing high-quality film. Those ingredients will be used to make the various coatings that are layered onto the base. Not all the layers are photosensitive. Some coatings protect the film, others stop layers from interacting. The photosensitive coatings need to be manufactured in complete darkness. There are two basic ingredients. The first ingredient is a high-grade gelatin, which is basically what jelly or jello is made from. The photosensitive coatings contain ingredients that need to be mixed consistently. Gelatin is what's called a colloidal medium. It's good at keeping ingredients evenly dispersed. What are they trying to keep evenly dispersed? It's the second fundamental ingredient, silver halide crystals. Silver halide is formed when you combine a silver atom and a halogen atom. Halogens are any element in group 7 of the periodic table. Silver and halogens are the perfect match for each other because they have complementary properties. As silver only has one electron in its outer shell, it's happy to give it up. A halogen, like bromide, is one electron short of having a complete outer shell, so it's quite eager to find one. Under the right conditions, bromide will do a deal with silver and take an electron. As opposites attract, those two atoms come together to form a lattice crystal structure. Why is all of this significant? When a photon interacts with the silver halide crystal, that energy could be absorbed by an electron. That electron can combine with the silver ion, thus creating a tiny metallic silver atom. This is the beginning of a latent image. During development, those tiny metallic seeds are grown into large clumps of silver that produce a visible image. Gelatin, silver salt, halogen salts, and other ingredients are added into this kettle. Heat, mixing speed, and acidity affect the size and shape of the crystals that form. That's how Kodak produces films with different speeds. There are several of these rooms. It's easy to underestimate their importance in the production of photographic film. This is where the stuff that makes images is born. The silver halide is transported to the batch melt room, where it's combined with other ingredients like sensitizing dyes, dye couplers, and more. Other layers are also mixed here, like interlayers, overcoats, anti-halation, and more. Jeff kindly arranged for a sample of the photographic emulsions that we could play with. Remember, the dyes absorb complementary colors, so you're not looking at a CMY record. The film is recording RGB. Yellow absorbs blue light, magenta absorbs green, and the cyan dye absorbs red. The emulsions are solid right now because they are cold. When heated, they're a liquid, but in their current state, they feel like feta cheese. That's because of all the gelatin. This batch is ruined now, and if they were left out in the light, they'd eventually turn gray. This was really cool. This is what makes film do the magic stuff that it does. Pipes carry those mixed ingredients to the coating machine. We're starting at the end where film gets loaded. This is Rob, and he's touring us around. Because they are handling just the base support that's not yet been sensitized, there are low-level lights in this room.
Yeah, so this is the unwinder turret that we have. We bring in unloaded, uncoated rolls of film. We load them onto our machine. You saw the AGVs earlier. They'll bring them into this where they'll engage with the machine. The chucks on this machine will engage into the uncoated roll. Then we'll rotate. We'll get the roll prepped and ready to enter the machine. This is kind of the first step in the process that we have in this facility. We're taking an unfinished roll and we're getting ready to coat it with chemicals and then dry it where it becomes a film that everyone uses.
How often does this process happen?
So depending on what we're manufacturing that day, it can take anywhere from 7 minutes all the way up to about 25 minutes per roll. So it depends on how fast we're going, how large the rolls are as far as like footage. Typically our rolls are between 7,000 and up to about 11,000 feet long.
That's mega. Goodness.
So while that...
But that's still not enough for Christopher Nolan.
No, we gotta do many rolls for that.
Please give this video a like if you enjoy jokes about footage. Okay, this next bit is really important. Do you remember from our lab tour the elevators, also known as accumulators? They are the lifeblood of any continuous production line. If you haven't seen our lab tour at Pinewood Studios, there is a link in the description.
This whole process occurred when both rolls were not conveying into the machine. That was due to the accumulators behind us. What that allowed us to do is continue coating at the same speed while we switch from one roll to the next. So the coating process continued throughout that entire time at whatever speed we're coating. Correct.
So right now, film is stored in the accumulator. When it starts going down, that means the roll is currently being changed, and the accumulator is feeding the line. It will continue to deplete while the roll is being changed. Now, do you notice it has stopped moving down? That means they have finished the reel change. And now that the reel is once again feeding the line, the accumulator can recharge. You can tell it's recharging because it's moving back up, ready for the next reel change.
I really just like telling people how long the machine is and how long it takes the film to be unwound and then wound back up between different coating stations and dried out. This is about a mile long behind us. So it takes quite a while for that film to go through our machine. Goes over a lot of different pieces of equipment before it's finished.
Rob just mentioned the coating line is about a mile long. It's not straight, it twists and turns, but the building here is still massive. The coating machine moves quickly, so there's an automated storage and retrieval system for managing the reels of film. We've spent all this time in the basement seeing how the base is loaded and unloaded, but this isn't even the cool part of the machine. That's upstairs where the jam and the bread come together to finally make photographic film. We nailed our timing because this machine runs all day long in pitch black dark, but right now they're in between runs. The coatings for the film that were prepared downstairs in the dark arrive at the coating room in these pipes which feed the coating machines. The curtain coater head dispenses those coatings onto the film. It's made from titanium because it has excellent dimensional stability at different temperatures. The engineering required to manufacture this is worth millions of dollars. There are 2 identical coating stations, which are next door to each other. This machine is incredibly sophisticated, so it's worth taking a moment to explain it with this cross-section animation. Kodak uses curtain coating, sometimes called waterfall coating. The coating is not sprayed or painted on. Rather, it is pumped as a liquid through narrow slits and falls in a uniform curtain onto the base as it passes underneath. It is possible to apply more than one coating to the film simultaneously. You might think this would cause the coatings to mix, but the system is engineered so precisely that it creates laminar flow in the liquid with no turbulence. This means the different layers never mix, even as they fall into the base. Dustin at Smarter Everyday has an incredible video where he visited this very same room. Please, if you haven't already, go watch it. The smallest imperfections in the coating curtain head or dirt in the system can have a negative impact on quality. So before each run, it's flushed with water and cleaned by hand. We had maybe 20 minutes in this room to see everything. They're getting ready to run now. So in a moment, you're going to see the photographic emulsion start getting pumped through the slits. It is a rare privilege to be here. The emulsion is now flowing. You can see that's definitely not water anymore. And you should just be able to see there's different colors coming from each slit. But currently, the coatings have turbulent flow. That means that even though they are flowing out of separate slits, they are all mixing together. By running a wiper through each slit, Terry will break up the turbulence and restore laminar flow. You can see very clearly how the color changes and individual layers can now be distinguished. It's a pretty incredible combination of science, precision engineering, and a gentleman with a small plastic wiper blade. Final checks are being performed, and now we are being told to get out because the lights are going off and production is going to begin. And that's it. The coating is now running and everything gets monitored from this room. It was pretty awesome that we got to see that. This is a great point to talk about Kodak's recent innovations. They're not just making legacy products, they're releasing new stocks like Verita, and recently they have reformulated Vision 3 so that it no longer needs rimjet.
So one of the first things you have to do with the remjet film is put it through a buffer solution and wash away that carbon black. You don't have to do that with our film. So that entire water load is no longer needed.
In case you don't know, rimjet was a layer of black carbon deposited on the reverse side of the film. Its primary purpose was to prevent halation, which is most commonly caused when light reflects off the pressure plate and re-exposes the film. Rimjet had to be scrubbed and washed off during development. Kodak's replacement is called the anti-halation undercoat, or AHU for short.
We use a photolytic silver that is used as a optical property that is broad-based spectrally. Goes from all the way from the blue, ultraviolet, all the way to infrared. So that material is spectrally dark. And by looking at the spectral distribution and the quantity of material that you would have to put down to block any light reflection back, that's kind of the basis of the AHU. The other big thing that we had to learn was we were essentially putting silver in the bottom of the film. Well, silver does a lot of things during photo processing. It can impact the layer right above it. So we had to re-engineer the Vision 3 film in the cyan record and the magenta record to accommodate this chemical interaction from the layer below. So it isn't silver halide based, it's silver based. So that layer that is the AHU layer is silver metal. And when it goes through the bleach and fix process, just like while you're developing up the silver halide imaging crystals to create silver metal, and the oxidized developer then creates a color image or inter-image effects, all the chemical imaging terms. But when you're all done, we get rid of the silver. So we do the same thing to the AHU silver. So now it's silver, and we'll bleach it, convert it basically to a halide, and then fix it away.
You've seen where the film base is loaded and where coatings are applied. These two rooms are just the tip of the iceberg, because remember, the entire line is about a mile long. This schematic shows the entire coating line. After the first station, the coating needs to dry and set. That's done by cooling the film, which solidifies the gelatin, and then it is heated to cure. Many films have more coatings than a single machine can apply, so the film will then go through the second coating machine and need to dry again. And finally, it can be wound up and placed back in those caskets. On another break in production, we got to look inside the drying alleys. Remember, typically this would be pitch black dark. Amazingly, over the entire mile-long line, the film never touches anything. When the film has to turn or change direction, these aren't rollers. They don't even spin. They're like air hockey tables. They are covered with tiny little holes that compressed air is pumped out of. It creates a buffer that allows the film to hover and glide. All the way back in 1888, Kodak coined the advertising slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest." They pride themselves on creating products that people can rely on. You can focus on creativity and be confident that the film in your camera won't let you down. That's especially critical for large motion picture productions who are spending millions of dollars on a single shot. You should be able to confidently pick up a can of film and know it will deliver results. For that reason, there is very rigorous quality control. The components are tested before being applied to the film base. Then once the film has been coated, they will test again. We didn't see the wind-up room, but every time they start a new roll, which can be about every 20 minutes or so, we'll cut off a sample, and it comes to this lab. Like many other production areas in this building, this room usually operates in complete darkness. Here, a large sample sheet is being cut into smaller strips, and then once again into even smaller strips. We can see what's happening, but remember, technicians do this from memory because you can't see anything in this room. They take them over to this machine that will expose them with light at varying stops of intensity. They get developed just like they would at any typical lab, and then they are analyzed. Kristen is measuring densitometry, the film sensitivity to exposure. What's really cool is that if there is an issue, it might not affect the entire roll. For example, if there was an issue with the curtain coating process, it might just affect 1 or 2 slits of the wide roll. If that's the case, when the roll gets slit later, they can recycle just the sections that were affected. Separate exposures of red, green, and blue light have been created on the film. This is referred to as a candy stripe. Eleni is using a paddle with red, green, and blue filters to selectively isolate the film's cyan, magenta, and yellow image dyes and look for potential defects. That's it. The film is coated, and it's placed back into a light-proof casket to be transported to the next part of the process, which takes place in a different building. Time to move on. We're heading to our final stop, Building 326. It's the building at the front of the property you see as you arrive, and it's the biggest of all the buildings we have been in thus far.
I'm Patrick Ryan. I'm the technical manager here of our finishing operation. We're in building 326, which is the film finishing building. It's 1/4 mile long. It was originally built for the aerial film business and the Bimat films that got used on the lunar reconnaissance missions.
We had to look that up too. Bimat was a special type of film that could be developed without liquid chemicals. In the 60s, NASA sent unmanned satellites to photograph the moon's surface. They shot on Bimat film. A machine inside the satellite developed it in space, which is amazing, and used analog technology to scan the images back and send them back to Earth.
So by finishing, I mean we're the last step in the process of where it's going to end up in the format for our customers. In building 38, that's where they're actually doing that coating operation on the large roll scale. And from there, we have to turn that casket into the finished goods.
There's 3 key steps that happen here: slitting, perforation, and packaging. Now, I know we've said this before, but just as a quick reminder.
Film is light sensitive, so whenever it gets handled in the dark, like this.
That was not a cut to black. The camera is still rolling. And as proof, if you look really closely, you will see 2 incredibly dim safety lights, which help people to locate doorways. The first step is slitting. We didn't get to see it happening, but here's one of the machines that does it. The wide rolls are fed through what could be described as a giant pizza cutter. These blades are set up to produce 35mm film. Then each slit is wound up separately, ready to go to the next stage in the process. This is Matt, and he operates the perforation machines.
Under normal production, this room would be dark. This door would be open. So we have what we call a rack of film back here. It's got 15 strips on it. The arm will automatically grab a roll, throw it on here. This arm comes down. This has got all the information as far as the length of the roll, the print, all the information that needs to produce this roll for the customer.
When the reel is changed over, they don't rethread the machine. They just tape the new reel to the old. It pulls the new reel through, and then at the other end of the machine, this adorable little arm attaches it to the core that it will be delivered on. Now it can spin up to speed. Look at the pace this thing moves at. This here, in the middle of this machine, is called the heart, and it's what is actually punching the perforations in the film. Again, Destin from Smarter Everyday has done an absolutely incredible video on just this part of the machine. Please, go watch it if you haven't already.
So as this rotates, it's going to punch the perfs in. The perfs go into the heart, and they get sucked out here. And they'll go to the perf bin that we'll see in a little while.
Once that's done, the finished roll is secured with a sticker and taken off. The machine is currently configured to produce 400-foot rolls.
Button, take it off.
It's then placed in a light-proof bag and can. And finally, it's labeled.
So when we were in the transport actually running film, as all those perforations get punched out, the vacuum sucks them out, they come through the wall, and they get dumped in here.
Oh my goodness.
Then once it gets full, we'll take it over to our recycle area. It'll go to another building, and they'll get the silver and that type of thing out of there.
If you remember, labs recycle the silver after film has been developed. Kodak does the same thing. Silver is reclaimed from all the perforations. As we moved around Kodak, we saw recycling bins for film everywhere. To keep up with the demand, there's many perforating machines. There's different types too. The one you just saw was a T-perf machine. Specifically, it was T31. The machine used for 65mm are called C-perf machines. They're in a different part of the factory.
So this here is 65mm film. This is wide format. This is usually the capture film for the IMAX.
How long does it take to train somebody to work in the dark?
Some people don't train. I hate to say it, but some people just don't like the dark. They're very uncomfortable. So, but once you get a feel for where the room is, if you notice everything's ultra clean, because the last thing I want to do is walk in here, somebody drops a core, and I trip on it.
Yeah.
Because I can't see it. So we're very particular about how clean the rooms are and picking up after ourselves.
How many people will be in this room at any given time working?
Me.
That's it?
Yeah, if somebody was to come in here, you have to say, watch out.
Okay.
Or, Matt, I'm coming in. You have to make yourself known.
because there's no way I'll see you. I'll run right into you. For me, it's second nature. The example I use is you wake up at midnight to get a glass of water at your house. You don't turn on every light. You know where the couch is, you know where the table is, so you make your way to the sink. Same thing. After 30 years, barring somebody being a wise guy, I know exactly where everything is, so I can walk right in.
It's like home.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, let's hit the lights off and I'm gonna watch you in the dark work.
Okay.
All right, let's hit those lights off.
Okay.
I promise I won't move, so
No,
I'm not
no
in your
problem.
way.
So what I do now is the same thing as over on the T. I'm putting a bias cut in the roll so that I don't jam the machine. Now I thread it up through the rollers. And now just like the other machine, I'm gonna put splice tape on it. So yeah, now I'm all set. I don't know if you'll see this. This is gonna tell me my information that's being printed. Can you see those lights?
I can.
You probably can't read it because.
Oh.
But yeah, once you're in here a while, you can see it. It's really fine print.
Marginal status? Marginal status. Normal status.
Normal status.
I got there in the end.
So yeah, normal status end of roll.
Okay.
And that tells me I'm starting my new roll.
That was pretty incredible. After you've been in the dark for a while, your eyes do adjust, and there is actually some incredibly faint lights and displays on some of the machines. It's too faint for the camera to see or to fog film, but just enough for the operators. Here's the machine running, but this time with the lights on. The T-Perf machine you saw initially uses a rotary drum to perforate the film. The film moves continuously, it never stops. This machine has an intermittent movement, not unlike a camera. That's why it works much slower. If you've ever seen a 15-perf IMAX movie, that film will have come through one of these machines.
So we are in the quality control room where all of our sampling for the larger format motion pictures, so that's like 35, 65, 70, that will get inspected. That is where they're going to actually be measuring the perforations, looking for dirt and defects and debris, scratches on the physical samples. How they're going to get those samples is through this tube system we're standing in front of here. So these are actually connected to the T-perforator machines. So they're actually going to take samples in the dark off the rolls when they're running, stick them in a tube, right? Kind of like the bank teller system, right? And they're going to shoot it through the air system here, and it's going to arrive here in the lab so they can get right to testing.
So here's an example. T31, remember that's the perforator we were on earlier. Well, Matt has just sent a small sample through the system in a tube, and here it is. The operator is going to remove the film. He'll send the tube back to Matt, ready for the next sample. The sample is loaded onto this microscope. This is one of the many inspections performed. In this instance, they are looking at the quality of the perforations. This is critical because cameras are designed with very tight tolerances, and the size and placement of the perfs will affect the stability of the image. The equipment is quite old. It's actually really refreshing to see older equipment that is still fit for purpose being used. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? On the wall above are pictures of perforation issues that the operator is looking out for, along with codes so they can be recorded and classified.
Okay, wait a minute. I got a couple questions. Firstly, these look quite archaic, vintage. Do you know how old this system is?
I believe this is all from the 90s.
Okay, all right. So I shouldn't have called that archaic because I was born before the 90s. Right.
Moving on.
Well, I mean, it's a challenge, right? The entire park's over 100 years old. So there's a lot of old infrastructure here. So, right, in the best case, you'd always be buying brand new things, keeping things up to date. But through the years, certain products might have went away and then came back, and we've consolidated and grown. So it's this tug and pull of saying, well, what's actually necessary, right? Because you only have so much money to spend, right? So you really have to spend a lot of time analyzing this equipment and say, well, what's really critical to upgrade right now to keep us in production? And then as we're kind of fixing some of the stuff that's been band-aided through the years, we're then now starting to focus more on the preventative side, right? Instead of saying, okay, this stuff breaks all the time, we're replacing it. Now we're looking more into the future and saying, okay, this stuff is kind of old, it might break. That's the stuff we're gonna start targeting.
And that is the end of the line. The film cans are sealed and labeled, ready to tell stories, record history, and make movie magic.
We've learned how film is made, but the story doesn't end here.
Next stop, LA. Welcome to Los Angeles. Like most movie production businesses, Kodak has an office in Hollywood to support studios and filmmakers. We're on our way to Kodak House. This is Vanessa Bendetti, Vice President and Head of Motion Picture.
The last 2 years, we've grown just in the motion picture business 36% from a revenue perspective. Part of that is volume, and part of that is the product mix. When we have Christopher Nolan shooting entirely on IMAX, when we have people shooting VistaVision, like Paul Thomas Anderson and Yorgos Lanthimos and Brady Corbet, that's a great thing for Kodak. We are also seeing a big increase in exhibition and people realizing that even if the film component for their release strategy is small, it eventizes the movie in a way that people start talking about the experience of seeing it in theaters that helps to drive other ticket sales.
We love going to see movies on film, and it's not just the unique aesthetic, but the theaters that project on film have heart and soul and make each presentation special. We're going to intercut Vanessa's interview with Jeff because we asked them similar questions. We're still talking about Kodak's future.
All businesses have to talk about sustainability. You know, there's a pressure to bring in the next generation of Kodak employees.
So Kodak is keenly aware of the retirement cliff that they have there and the deep knowledge base that our employees have. And you can hire someone new, you can train them, but you can't duplicate 40 years of experience and 2 years of training. You just can't do it. And so there's been a lot of emphasis on succession planning at Kodak. And we thankfully have a great new regime of young, energetic, passionate people apprenticing and mentoring under key resources there.
And that's been going on for several years. When you look at my particular group, we're almost 50-50 young people and senior people.
And I think because there's been the growth in film, Kodak has realized, you know, it's not going away. This is something we're going to continue to support and we're going to invest in. And because of that, you know, we've made sure that we're ready for that.
Those interviews are almost 3 months apart, but the consistency of the message we heard speaks to the fact that this initiative has become a part of Kodak's culture. If you're a cynic, yes, this is a message a corporation would project, but we can attest that from our limited perspective, we found it very noticeable the amount of young and new employees with positions of significant responsibility. In fact, Kodak is hiring. This is on the side of their factory.
I'm looking for anyone who is interested in troubleshooting, problem solving, and curiosity. Film's a great puzzle. There is so much of silver halide film that is technologically challenging. Several people have commented that silver halide is the next most complicated thing to the human body.
We started talking with Vanessa about who is shooting on film. Just to give this some context, the film industry is shaped like a pyramid. There's lots and lots of low-budget productions. They are represented by the widest part of the pyramid. In comparison, there are very few high-budget productions, so they are represented by the narrowest part. And then there's all the intermediate budget productions in the middle. Changes in technology, consumer habits, and other factors have hit the middle section the hardest.
When you talk about the pyramid, our strength is the pinnacle and the base, definitively. The middle is where we've lost the most market share because a lot of the middle, there's just different priorities. And I think the reason we've been able to grow is our customer base is really about that pinnacle who are able to make movies regardless of kind of what's going on in the industry, and they're able to command how they want to make their films. And then it's this emerging filmmaker base. I think there's an appetite from younger filmmakers to get close to this kind of more craftsman-like process that film requires and this learning experience and this tangible, medium that they get to interact with. And other filmmakers who might want to work with them are excited by that. And so they end up forming relationships, around the medium in a way that I don't think you have as much with digital.
Currently, no one is manufacturing new motion picture film cameras. That's not an issue at the moment because the market is flooded with secondhand cameras. But no matter how well maintained something is, it will break eventually. So does that pose a risk to the future of film? And when is someone going to make a new camera?
Film cameras are a lot more simple than digital cameras, and they're somewhat future-proof. It's analog technology that is more easily fixed in some ways if you have the right knowledge base than the digital counterpart. And I think there's going to be a longer trajectory during which our current infrastructure from a camera perspective exists. Also, we should be concerned about that to some degree for sure. And there are a lot of very bright entrepreneurial filmmakers and engineers who are taking it upon themselves, because the larger camera manufacturers have not, to resurrect film formats and certain cameras and build new cameras. And if we can get behind them as Kodak, which I'm trying to do, and also if we can get one of the camera manufacturers to support them so that these ideas and these prototypes can be scaled, I think there's a roadmap to solve that problem.
Finally, what does the future of film and Kodak look like?
Film is growing, and because of that, Kodak is really doubling down on their investment to ensure that we can continue to manufacture and maintain the quality that everybody expects from us. So I feel really optimistic about where our business is going. I feel the most secure and the most excited about where the medium is right now than I have in my 10 years at Kodak.
Thanks once again to iodyne for sponsoring this video. How else can the ProData add value to your projects? The ProData's 256-bit encryption satisfies studio security requirements. Its sleek yet rugged design is equally at home in an edit suite or in the field. It fits in this flight case or in a regular laptop bag. It can even be powered from non-AC sources using this adapter, or in this instance, I'm powering it with a Bimat battery. It's not just a tool for production, it's amazing for post-production too. Uncompressed 32-bit EXRs at UHD 24 frames per second have a data rate of about 3.2 gigabytes per second. Real-time playback is well within the ProData's sustained performance. The iodyne ProData is a unique product, and it's purpose-built for filmmakers. There are no other products on the market that combine the I/O, performance, security, and form factor of the ProData. For those working on productions that require vast amounts of portable storage, incredible speed, and maximum security, the iodyne ProData might just be the storage solution that you've been looking for.
If you've watched this far, thank you. Pop a comment down below. Now it's time to share our thoughts. First, can we talk about our biases? We love film. We also love digital. We try to be balanced when talking about strengths and shy away from sweeping statements about either. There's more than enough room in this world for people who love film and for people who would rather not use it. We wouldn't have been able to make this doc without Kodak graciously allowing us to visit their factory and talk with their employees. But they don't get to dictate what we say or how we edit this piece. Obviously, there's a danger that we become incentivized to show loyalty to Kodak. That's the reality of these kind of collaborative arrangements, but that's not the way we work. Generally, on this channel, we approach companies whose products we already use. We are filmmakers and educators. We don't work in sales. So with that said, here are our impressions. Overall, we were blown away by our time in the factory and left feeling confident that film and the company that pioneered it has a future. Here's 3 things that impressed us. First, the people. Without fail, everyone that we met at Kodak from junior to senior were friendly, passionate about film, and happy to share their time and knowledge. We interface with a lot of companies, and that sort of atmosphere is not a given. Second, the process. In Rochester, there are 4 ordinary buildings, but they are filled with a symphony of machines and complex processes that must all happen perfectly to produce usable film. And they do so reliably and consistently. That takes smart people that work together well. And finally, the product that comes from this place, film. It is special. It creates beautiful and physical artifacts of moments and performances that you can hold in your hand, project on a screen, or share on the internet. And those images have way more permanence than a hard drive, SSD, or cloud storage. Content about film naturally generates conversations about whether or not it's still relevant, practical, or economical. So before you comment, here's some thoughts. Firstly, there's this misconception that digital is free. It's not. Hard drives and SSDs have both an environmental and monetary cost. Yes, drives can be reused if you're willing to delete footage, but in many paid projects, the footage is a valuable asset that is retained. And yes, scanning film also requires those same hard drives and SSDs, but not in the same quantity. On this production, our digital media is 4 times the size of our film scans. In a given production, travel and labor usually carry the highest cost and will outstrip the carbon footprint and cost of your capture medium of choice, whether that's film or digital. Thinking further, most people are shooting film on cameras that are older than they are, and given its relative simplicity, film is an easier product to dispose of. We're not making a direct comparison, just saying that the question of cost and impact is more nuanced than most comment section conversations imply. Economic and environmental impact is an important consideration when planning a shoot, and we all have a responsibility not to be wasteful regardless of what medium we shoot on. Second is film relevant. People value the way things are made and can spot fakes. An authentic process generally makes an authentic product. Whether that's Tom Cruise actually performing stunts, a table that's made from real wood, ice cream with real vanilla, or a musical performance that's live rather than mimed. Following the carrot of ease can compromise your intent. There is a discipline that comes from learning to do the job without automated aids. And when telling stories or creating art, the process we use is a part of the story and a part of its beauty. Shooting digital is easier than shooting on film. But within a matter of years, we're going to be able to say that using generative AI is easier than physical production, and that it can convincingly emulate real life. But most people don't want to see movies that have been imagined by a computer. It's a given that narrative is make-believe, but there's an emotional connection that comes from knowing that moment was performed by a real human being. There's a similar connection that comes from understanding the other production decisions that were made. So, given everything that's happening, we'd say film is more relevant than it's ever been. There's a prescient quote we really like, the words of Michael Crichton, or as most people tend to think of them, the words of Jeff Goldblum.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
So whether you shoot on film or digital, tell meaningful stories, exercise your imagination, and choose tools that inspire you.
We'd like to take a moment to thank some people who made this possible.
Michael and the team at the New York Kodak Lab for our US scans, Ruhan, Andy, and the team at the London Kodak Lab, Tim and Nora at Digital Orchard for the UK scans, such a great team. In Rochester, we were joined by Karsten Harris and James Claxton, who helped us drag and operate 5 cameras as we moved around the Kodak Factory for 3 days. Thank you, Jonathan Barlow, for being our ever-patient guide at Kodak. Thank you, Jeff and Vanessa, for taking time to answer our questions. And thank you, of course, to all the Kodak family that gave us their precious time.
If you have questions, thoughts, and feelings, drop them down in the comments below. Thank you for watching.